Yo, what's going on people? My name is theoldbushwick and welcome back to yet another video. Today I wanted to talk about my Monstera Deliciosa, which I have in a 10-inch pot. I've had it for a few months now. Now this is the best possible setup that I can come up with so that I can both show you the plant and be in the frame. But obviously this plant is so large that not even the entirety of the plant can be in frame while I'm in frame. So we're just gonna have to do the best with what we have. This video should secretly be named Patience Wins Part 2 because this is another testament of why patience is so important in the plant hobby. But I'll get to all of that later in the video. So a quick fact about the Monstera, it is also known as a Swiss cheese plant, and it gets its names because it tends to have these things called fenestrations on the leaves. Now fenestrations are essentially the slits and the holes that you see it develop on the leaves. So the more mature the Monstera Deliciosa is and the more established it is in its setting, the more likely it is that you're going to have a leaf that produces more and more fenestrations. Okay, so I just whipped out my propagated Monstera Deliciosa, which I actually took from this bad boy here. And I just wanted to show you guys the difference between a fenestrated leaf and essentially a regular Monstera leaf. So this is a traditional regular Monstera leaf. It is significantly more juvenile than this plant is because it's a cutting. So it's going to take a little bit to establish itself in its new environment, in its new setting, now that it's separated from the mother plant. And for that reason, this being the first leaf, it was not very likely that I was going to have fenestrations on this leaf. But one of the really cool things is that we actually got a leaf that is pretty sizable. And what that tells me is that while it's not completely there with respect to feeling established and mature enough, it is on the path to that. So I really do expect that the next few shoots that this plant develops will eventually have the fenestrations on the leaves, but for now, that's what we have. Going back to the mother plant though, the Monstera Deliciosa is native to Central America and Mexico. And a really cool fact about this plant is that while indoors it is very rare for this to happen, outdoors and in the perfect conditions, this plant will actually produce an edible fruit, which is only possible when the plant feels that it is in the optimal conditions, and that is more often than not going to happen outdoors. Now, some quick care tips about the Monstera Deliciosa. Now, this plant, while it is considered to be a very hardy plant, it's not really up there in the leagues with, say, the ZZ plant, which is an incredibly hardy plant and is very drought tolerant. Now, this plant can go a few days missing a watering. However, it doesn't like to dry out completely between waterings. So I always recommend sticking to the finger test with respect to the soil to see whether or not you need to water it, and doing this very frequently enough so that you can feel the transition from moist soil to, you know, it's kind of dry soil to, okay, now the top few inches of this plant are dry. Now, when it comes to lighting, this plant likes to be in the medium to bright indirect light spectrum. I like to keep this plant in the bright indirect spectrum, so I have it right in front of my window, and from the morning until the time that the sun goes down, I have the windows and the blinds wide open for the plant to receive as much sunlight as it can. And I'll say this, I've really been seeing the effects of proper care on this plant. In the last few months, it's been continuously sending out new shoots to the point where, of course, there's always going to be a little bit of glee whenever you're receiving a new leaf. It's kind of regular to me now. Sometimes I wake up, I always inspect the plants to make sure that they're doing fine, and I notice a new shoot that is emerging, and instead of like, oh my gosh, it's more like, okay, I'm still doing the right thing. But that's not to say that I don't appreciate a new leaf emerging, because that's one of the best parts of being a plant owner. Now, that is it for the basic care tips of the plant. Now, I wanted to touch a little bit on why patience, once again, just like in the ZZ Plant Raven video, is so important. Now, the Monstera Deliciosa is super famous on Instagram, but I feel like it had this peak moment in the years 2016 to 2017, where on Instagram, if you wanted to be a famous plant influencer, the #1 key was owning a Monstera Deliciosa. And if you had one this size, it was pretty much set for you. You were going to have a ton of followers, a ton of likes on your photos. But because this plant was so popular at the time, it also led to the plant becoming very expensive in a lot of places. But fast forward, 2019, when I'm picking this guy up, I pick it off of my local plant nursery, and of course I see it from a mile away. It's the last in stock, right? So I run over to it, I'm like, dude, that is such a huge Monstera Deliciosa. At the time I was in an 8-inch pot, and I noticed two things. One, a $20 price tag on an 8-inch Monstera Deliciosa, which If you would have told me that in 2016, I would have looked at the 4-inch Monstera Deliciosa for $25 and I would have laughed at it like, please get that away from my face. The only thing was that the plant looked very damaged. The leaves were, to be honest, a lot of them weren't salvageable and I had to cut them off to save the rest of the plant. And when I brought the plant back home and I took it out of the pot, I noticed that it was incredibly root bound. Now I'm gonna put some B-roll on the screen right now for you guys to see a little bit of what I'm talking about, but it was really bad. The good thing though is that plants are biological beings. It's not like a collector's item that most of the time if you get a damage, it's beyond restore. A plant would do its best to come back from the brink of death, and that's exactly what this Monstera Deliciosa did. I am so proud to have gotten it off of the clearance rack. Once again, if you would have told me this in 2016, I would have lost my stuff. So with that being said, that is the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure that you leave a thumbs up. If you want to stay updated on this plant and the rest of my collection, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions about the Monstera Deliciosa or any plant related questions at all, make sure that you leave them down in the comment section below and I will make sure to get back to you. I hope you're staying safe in these crazy times. Until next time, peace. The camera's so far away, I gotta like